Good afternoon. This is Ayodele Oshunremi again. Um, I just want to inspire you, encourage you, and hopefully I encourage myself as well. It is very important that we have role models, people that we look up to, and we can take a peek out of their lives and inject some of those into our lives. Whether in the same way or in the same token, we can be who we are. I have made some points or some notes which I've written, and I would like to read them to you we go, before we start looking at the clips. Excuse me. I want to talk about an individual and what this particular individual did that transformed lives of thousands of millions of people. Just one man. What influenced this segment is the inspiration I have taken over the last 25 to 30 years from an icon, a positive role model, a freedom fighter of the 21st century, Nelson Mandela. Nelson Mandela was arrested in 1962 and tried in the court of law for conspiring to overthrow the government of South Africa. Subsequently, he and some of his colleagues were then sentenced to life imprisonment. In actual fact, Mandela and his contemporaries' crime was their fight against segregation and or discrimination on the grounds of race. He and his friends fought against the imperialism of that era. Nelson Mandela spent 27 years in prison for standing for the rights of the minority. For standing for the rights of the majority who were living under the suppression of the colonial masters. "27 years in prison, they had to quickly, from the onset, come up with some strategies that was going to sustain them within prison and beyond prison. His survival and that of his contemporaries during their years of imprisonment is central to the core values they adopted from the onset of their imprisonment and thereafter. Nelson Mandela talked publicly about those values. I have translated those values into a motivational and mentoring tools for students, families, community settings, or community groups, and myself. I am using this medium to convey the 10 strong values to you with the hope that you may choose to inculcate them as you journey through this ever fast, complex, changing world that we live in today. These are the values that I would like you to carefully listen to me. And if you don't have them before, it might be one of those things that you want to consider. Because when I have listened to Nelson Mandela's many interviews, this man doesn't cease to inspire me. He became the president of South Africa in 1994. if my memory serves me right. And he was there for 4 years. He spent 27 years in prison. If not for these values that we are going to look at today, that man, Mandela, the great man, probably wouldn't have survived. Or maybe within a year or so after his freedom, he probably would have died. But this man lived, and he actually outlived his own self. Even though he is gone to glory, his name and his legacy lives on. That is how, and I pray that my life will plan out. That long after I may have gone, that people will still talk about me. My words and actions will live beyond the grave. Let us begin to look at those values that this great man brought to bear. He and his colleagues, they agreed that they had to stand from the very, very beginning of their ordeal, of their incarceration, of their torments. Demand respect from those people who were holding them captives. And these were the people who were put in position to keep them in prison, to watch over them, to make sure their life was intolerable. Every move that they made. But Mandela and his contemporaries demanded that they have to be respected, and vice versa. Mandela gave them respect. Demand respect. Respect, give it to get it. Prove them wrong. No matter what circumstances you and I, or in the case of Mandela, find himself, he had to believe in himself and in what took him to that place of loneliness, that place of complete reflection, a place that you and I could only describe as a dark place, a valley. He had to draw from his inner self to prove the minority wrong. Believe in yourself, he said, even when no one else does. If someone tells you that you cannot do it, prove them wrong. So he did, so you can. Whilst they were in prison, they made sure they used their time wisely. Every time they had the opportunity to be together, maybe at a very rare occasion where they had leisure activities together or sports, they discussed about the future. The future that some of them may have never comprehended will come. They made sure psychologically they were free, even though they were behind bars. You see, if you use your time wisely, if you construct your time and use it wisely, no matter circumstances or situation you find yourself, when the time of freedom comes, when the abundance comes, you will flourish. Mandela and his contemporaries spent time planning ahead of their freedom. The freedom that they never thought would come or may come. They did not know when, how, or if ever, but they used their time wisely. Do not worry about label. Mandela and his contemporaries were labeled as terrorists. You name it, everything they were painted with. All manner of names they were called. but they knew who they were, and they knew exactly what they stand for. Do not worry about labels. Label jars, not people. So this man that was seen as a terrorist, somebody that infringes on the rights of others, did not see or agree with the circumstances that took him behind bar. It was just a temporary label. And even if it wasn't a temporary, if it was a permanent one, Mandela and his contemporaries never saw themselves the way the minority viewed them. So you cannot accept the label that is put on you that is deplorable. In that situation where they found themselves, they were humble. Not just the fact that the circumstances humbled them, they were humble. A humble mind, a humble person makes it in life. Things will come to the disposer of a humble person. A humble person attracts favor. An arrogant person finds it difficult. They may find their way through, but they find it very difficult, and they carry negative vibes with them. Humility is not thinking less of yourself, but thinking of yourself less. Mandela and his colleagues, they had people that they knew, that they've read about, that they saw on television. Role models, influential individuals that shaped their thinking, that shaped their path, their journey. They borrowed from different people into their own given skills and abilities that God had given them. So it became abundance, pressed down, running over, wisdom. If you have that kind of wisdom, because you are looking to the right, to the left, before you and behind you, above you, beneath you, you are drawing positivity. You are looking at individuals who have shaped destiny, who has shaped life, who has impacted life in the most productive way that you can ever imagine. Every blessed night, Nelson Mandela, behind that prison on his bed, was inspired and kept going by the history, by the names of individuals who have cemented their place in history constructively. And these people that you can see here are some of, personally for me, my role models. Have role models. Take a stand. Even if your stand will take you to an early grave, take a stand. That is what you will be known for. And speak up. They refuse to be intimidated by the circumstances that they found themselves in. The world knew, even children that did not physically know Mandela grew to be an adult to hear of Mandela's stand behind the bar, suffering. So many of them put their own lives on the line to ensure that a selected people eventually gain freedom to shape them. Gain freedom that will shape them. So many of us got to know Mandela and got to know his place in history before we saw him walk to freedom. Stand, just because of this kind of values, stand up, speak out, take a stand, even in the midst of fear, of suppression, of subversion, manipulation, all manner of things that could go on to want to keep you quiet. Take a stand. Take a stand. And that, the only thing it will do, I mean, when Mandela was in prison with his contemporaries, how far can you go? The worst that could happen to them at that point in time is to kill them. In fact, Mandela said in some of his interviews that they never thought they would come out alive. But they had to prepare their mindset. Don't die before your time. Every blessed day is an opportunity for you and I, regardless of the storms, regardless of the tsunami, regardless of the isolation or rejection, regardless of what you are hearing, or regardless of what you are listening to. Because sometimes people are not saying anything. It is your mind saying it. And that is where the devil, the battleground of the devil, the mind, that is where the battle is won and lost. When the devil can play on your mind, begin to put words into you. You may think other people are doing stuff. They may not do anything. It may just be you. And that's the worst thing when you don't see much in yourself. Take a stand. Take a stand. And whilst they were there, whilst they were in that place, they were able to manage their emotions. Managed it. They did not allow anger to manage them. They managed anger. As a result, a lot of people were drawn to them. They were able to plan their freedom even without being free. Because they did not let one or two things set them back. Many of us have been there, where we've lost the plot through anger. It is like an egg. If an egg should drop, you cannot put it back together. It is gone. That is often what happens when we open our mouth without processing and reflecting on the likely consequence of that action. I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I haven't done that before. But these great people put in check their anger. We all have it. We all have anger. But we should manage anger, not the other way around. They were willing to. They were willing to die for what they believe in, for what they believed in. And that belief, that thing that they saw, eventually opened the door and brought them out of the valley of the shadow of death, brought them out of the grave, just like Lazarus, and put them in a place where they become a point of reference for all the good reasons. They were willing to die for what they believed in. They became news. Mandela became news. Queen invited him. He was invited by influential people. Everybody wanted a piece of this man who was once upon a time a prisoner for 27 years. But he did not see himself as a prisoner. It is for that reason this great man and many of his contemporaries were able to walk that walk. And he just did not take those steps. Those steps actually took him into a place of influence where he became the president of the Federal Republic of South Africa, the first black man to lead in a country with the majority of black people. He wanted people to get together. He wanted people to embrace one another. When he left prison, the bitterness and the anger, whatever had happened, he left them behind. This man moved forward. When you encounter, if you encountered him, I encountered Mandela so many times, not face to face, but through literature, through news. Go into the archive. You will encounter this extraordinary man. He spoke with conviction. Despite the years that he had spent in prison, he was able to speak, and he spoke volume into the life of so many of us. Speak with conviction. Stick to what you say. If you do not, then your word wouldn't mean anything. Just want to encourage you to take those values on board, inculcate them into your own life, and you will see it will go a long way. It isn't easy. Let's just quickly walk through them, just one after the other. Demand respect in the way you are, in the way you present yourself. Prove them wrong. Use your time wisely. Do not worry about labels. There's nothing you can do about it. People will say whatever they want to say. Be humble. Have heroes, positive role models. Take a stand. Manage your emotions. Be willing to die for your cause. Speak with conviction. And those things will help you and help me too. I hope one way or the other, I have been able to inspire you this afternoon, as I have already done earlier on this morning, stroke this afternoon, in the midst of some students. Thank you very much. And hopefully we will be looking at a different kind of topic on the next episode or segment or whatever. And that will be around challenging slave mentality, how you can challenge it, and the impact that that kind of mentality has on people. I've developed that PowerPoint, and then hopefully at some point tomorrow or a day after, we will come to enjoy that. Thank you very much.